What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee and Questions podcast. I am Michelle Berman Michael, your host, and I have Brian View here with me today. Who the funny story goes, right, for you and I, Brian, that like how did we not know each other for all of this time?
Right.
Which I'm sure we'll get into and talk about. But what I really want my audience to know is, who is Brian and where did Brian come from? And I know we kind of laughingly joked offline of you're the chief cook, bottle washer, whatever my job title needs to be today. But in all seriousness, you are the president of FinLocker and you're doing some really cool stuff in the mortgage and just housing space. So tell us a little bit about who you are. How did you start FinLocker? What is it? All of that and just high level overview.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Michelle. And yeah, it's amazing that through all the travels and events that we do, we've not run into each other, but looking forward to that happening here sooner than later. So I think I have the battle wounds and the scars of a founder, but I'm not the founder of the business. I came into the business about 6 years ago, invited into the business by the founders to kind of help grow the business from its inception to where we are today. And we still have a long way to go, by the way. You and I are recording this on the last day of the month, and we get about, I don't know, 30 minutes to pat ourselves on the back at the end of each month, and then you're starting at zero or sometimes worse the very next day. And that's the life of an entrepreneur, of a startup, and frankly of a loan officer who you and I deal a lot with in our day to day. But we, real quick, who is FinLocker? We're a technology company that serves primarily the housing finance industry and really specifically the mortgage industry. We primarily serve mortgage companies and their loan officers. And we basically provide our clients, our lender clients and loan officers, with a piece of technology that allows them to reach, assist, engage, nurture, and convert way up the funnel with early journey first time home buyers in particular. And there's all kinds of things in between that we do, but the gist of it is we're here to help lenders and loan officers win at the point of thought versus having to compete, tooth and nail at the point of sale.
Oh my gosh, that was so good. Are we done now? That like
That's it. Mic
that was a
drop.
mic drop. Look, that was really good. I gotta go make sure we don't forget that quote because that might be the quote of the month for me.
Oh
That was
boy.
good. That was really good. The point of thought versus the point of sale, right? Like if you really think about it that way. And I think so many people are fighting for the point of sale. Um,
Yeah,
and I mean, we all are, right? And I think for many of us, especially for obviously what FinLocker is doing, that's the whole point of being able to sort of beat the competition before there even is any, I guess, and it is a
that's
good way
right.
of looking at it.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about just how you and I met because I think it funnels really well into this big overarching conversation of social selling really is the future of what we're doing. And before we dive down that rabbit hole, one of the things that you briefly mentioned there that I want to put a magnifying glass on just a hair, because I do think that there will be a lot of people listening to this that are in the same spot that you and I are in. They just do loans every month as opposed to
Right.
trying to, either sell product or in your case, same concept of selling product or selling subscription type based model, is we start every month severely in the red.
Yeah.
I have been in business for almost 10 years and, very transparently, I've never spoken about this publicly, especially not on my podcast, but here we go, right? I start roughly 20 to $30,000 a month in the red.
Right.
Now that has changed over the years to, some months it's less, some months, oh my gosh, we're starting at break even. But the reality is that that's what we have to face. It's this giant burden every single month, but we face it willingly because we want to.
Right.
That's why we do it. But it funnels into this conversation of prospecting. And that's what I really, really want to talk about is how do you look at the social channels from your perspective, Brian, and say, I'm looking at this individual that I see on here and how can I look at them not just as a transaction because in theory yes we need to make money, but how do we then approach that or breach the conversation and see the opportunity in our mind and then send the message so that it doesn't sound like sleazy car salesman, hey, I want
Yeah.
money. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. It's so for me, it's been a lesson in learning. along the way. And so on the onset, I said, I've been here about 6 years, right? Prior to FinLocker, I spent 30 plus years in what I, lovingly today refer to as the comfy confines of corporate America, mainly in large banks, where at the time I would have told you I never had enough resources, but looking back, I had more than I ever deserved. And so I never had to market the way I have to market today. I never had to build, nurture, and refine my personal brand the way I have to today. I never had to, actively sell into a market, into a cohort, into a segment the way I have to today. And so when I first, made the move and came to FinLocker, I started by assuming people knew who we were. And so I went right into the pitch just about every time. And guess what? That didn't work so well. For a bunch of different reasons. So what I've been working on and refining, and it is a work in process and progress, is being a better storyteller. And the stories aren't about FinLocker per se, but if you connect the dots and you pay attention to what I'm talking about, primarily on LinkedIn, you can pretty well figure out that if I'm talking about why it's so important for loan officers to think about how to get up funnel and engage consumers 6, 12, 18 months before they're ready to buy. Mm. I do believe that, by the way, but I also have some technology that can help assist in that. And so my point here is that instead of just selling, I'm doing more telling, right? Telling the story on what would life look like if you were a loan officer who actively built this pipeline of hundreds of prospective home buyers that are in various stages of readiness. And now on a monthly basis, you got X percent or X number are kind of becoming ready. And so instead of that pit in the stomach when you wake up on April 1st saying I'm 20K in the hole, you're like, no, but I've got these 5 buyers that are coming into the pipeline this month. So I don't know where I was going with that. I just lost track, but
love
I think
yeah, I
think
love it
to me it's about telling stories that are valuable to the listener, right? So I like to think that the content I put out has some value for somebody out there that they can actually use, whether they work with me or not. That's going to help them be better today in their business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so true because I think part of our job on social is to stand out. And I hate when people say that, right?
Yeah.
I got to find my differentiator. But the real matter of fact of it is that we do, right? And I think most people are doing it wrong, which is obviously why I do what I do and why you do what you do. But
right.
I think most people are so heavily focused on here's all of the benefit, here's all of the answers to all of your problems, here's this thing, that they forget the real reason that somebody buys something in the first place is usually it either creates a solution that's really, really tangible for them, or it gives them hope. That's what I say all the time, right? It either creates a solution instantaneously where it's so easily and obvious that it's a no-brainer, duh. However, I will tell you most marketing as far as products don't make it that easy for the consumer, right? We don't look at it and say, oh yeah, duh, I need that. Most marketing isn't that good.
Right.
So you're either creating a solution for someone to make it a duh, oh my gosh, yes, I need this, here's my credit card moment, or your job is to create the story where it's so hard for them to want to go to anybody else because whatever you got going on, Brian, I'm buying because I like Brian.
Right.
And that's the power. So can you go back? You said something about personal brand, and I think you meant to go down a wormhole and you kind of stopped, but I want you to talk about that because you said, I've never had to work so hard on my personal brand ever before, right? Like, can you dig into that a little bit?
Yeah. So again, if I go back to my first 30 years in business, I worked for powerful brands, powerful logos, and the brand, the logo, the products that we offered were enough, right? And also at the time, I was in a leadership role Not that I'm not here today, but it's it's a different. We're in a different world in this smaller company. And so when I came to FinLocker, first of all, nobody knew FinLocker. You know, that we weren't a known entity. We're definitely weren't a known brand, and frankly, the product was unlike anything else. And so people struggled to understand not only who we were, but what the heck we did and how what we do could be helpful for them.
I mean, I asked that
Um,
question. I remember when we first,
yeah,
I asked that exact question. I was like, what is
what do you
FinLocker?
do?
Yeah.
That's right. So one of the things that I realized when I made the move over that I brought as an asset was the work that I had done to that point on LinkedIn. I built a decent following on LinkedIn. This goes back to 2019, let's say. And I'm like, well, at a minimum, I've got this asset, this group of people that are following me. How can I start to talk to them in a way that helps them understand who we are, what we do, and while we may not directly benefit them, maybe there's somebody they know that we would benefit, right? And so that was like, number one reason for leaning into LinkedIn is because I brought this asset, which was my followers, connections. Number two, which probably is number one, I mentioned a couple times, we were a startup. We're still a small counterparty, limited resources, limited capital. We poured almost all of our energy into product design, development, et cetera. And so even if I had a brand that people knew about, I didn't have the capital to go out and promote the brand traditionally, right? And so I just made the decision, coming out of 2019 into 2020 to just go all in on LinkedIn. And my initial all in was all in FinLocker on LinkedIn. And that was a big fat dud
Oh gosh.
because nobody cared about FinLocker, right? I mean, and I say that kind of, tongue in cheek, but based on what I saw happening on my post, it wasn't moving the needle. It wasn't until I had a post like one day that was totally like accidental, and it was about my oldest son plays professional baseball. I think you and I had this conversation a while ago, and so he had gotten called up to the big leagues, right? It was like that momentous,
Right.
historic moment for him and our family. And so, of course, being proud about it, I posted about it. Nothing in that post mentioned anything about FinLocker. It was just all about his journey and that achievement, that first pitch on the mound on a big league field. That post blew up. My same audience. Nothing changed in who was out there, but the message was different. It was personal. It was, oh, this is what Brian's about. Brian's got this other thing in his life, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
that turned on a different side of my brain in terms of how I thought about leveraging my network. And I felt like at that point I needed to tell more stories about myself, but just more storytelling in general instead of product placement, product, benefit, all the stuff that we already talked about. And so it was that accidental post that blew up that really kind of triggered what I saw. And I'm not a trained, social media expert at all. It's very much trial and error, but
Mm-hmm.
I tend to lean more into personal and storytelling. And then maybe a tenth of what I do on any given basis is like FinLocker, FinLocker, FinLocker. But I feel like I earned the right to do that because I'm giving all this other content, this other value and insights into myself as a person to earn the right to tell a little bit about this company and this product we offer.
Well, I think people are less ew about it when it comes
Yeah,
secondary to that. So that's a really good point, though, because right now, I would say, and correct me if you think I'm wrong too, or if you want to have an opinion elsewhere or outside of it, I guess you could say. Instagram, especially, we're just going to shift gears for a second there, and even really LinkedIn. Let's just say both. When I look at a traditional loan officer's content on Instagram right now, it is so mortgage heavy,
yeah,
or it's either one or the other, right? It's either 100% business, 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 and then you'll have like the, oh, random one personal post, Or it's the exact opposite where it's so personal that I don't know anything about your experience, your expertise, or your credibility in this space that would then make me say, hey,
Yeah.
you're the right loan officer for me to get a loan on my dream home, right?
Hmm.
And I remember way back in the beginning of this, when I first launched Beyond the Method, the idea behind it was creating pillars that allowed the business to be around on your in your content, but that it was segmented in a way where it wasn't all business all the time. And even the different business pillars that we were leaning into were spaced out in a way, or, broken into multiple different categories where even if you did hear it or see it on someone's account, that it would just land well, right? It would almost
Right.
sort of be like this subliminal drip in to the fourth pillar being lifestyle content, which is anything and everything from your camera roll. Who are you as a human outside of work? Well, fast forward to 2022, and I decided, oh my gosh, there's this massive opportunity to create an analogy between what you love to do, like playing baseball, and the pain point of your ideal client, which in this case for FinLocker being something that a loan officer wants to be able to get to the person before they even know that that person is ready, or before that person even knows that they're ready. So how do we turn that into content? And the solution, or what came of that, was we now have mortgage professionals that are creating content on social, and they're actually doing it in a way where I'm not just consuming mortgage, 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 mortgage all the time. Instead, I'm consuming a little bit of mortgage, but a lot of passion, a lot of personal interest, and then, oh, here's this mortgage post that's like really mortgagey because I have this is important information and I got to get it out. And you don't piss your audience off,
Right.
and you don't alienate your audience in the sense of where they're just like, oh, another post from Brian about FinLocker, I'm out, right?
Yeah.
So what really came out of all of this, which you just said perfectly, is you have to find a way to storytell, because if you can storytell and you can be a person first, then you get permission to
Yes.
share the product. Then you get permission to talk about the new mortgage program or the new this, that, or whatever the third thing is that you want to share about mortgage. But you have to earn it.
100%.
I love how you said that, because that I had never like articulated that in my mind until you just did. But I really think this is important for us to spend more time on in this conversation. You have to earn the right to be able to talk about mortgage, or in your case, FinLocker, or in my case, I have to earn the right to be able to talk about, hey, you should buy my program.
Right. The other thing I would add is that a lot of people would hear that and say, I just have to get to the place where I earn the right. And then from there forward, I can do whatever I want. Not anymore on these platforms. It's a continuous process of earning the right for that next
Mm-hmm.
conversation, right? Because we're all just inundated every day. There's so many different feeds that are coming into us that, you had mentioned that, you don't want to piss off your audience. I
Mm-hmm.
would argue that that's not the worst thing you could happen. The worst thing that could happen is they just are totally indifferent to you.
Oh,
Because
yeah, absolutely.
if they're pissed, they're probably going to at least engage. It may not be the healthiest engagement, but at least they're engaging. If they become indifferent, they just go away. And to me, it's kind of like, dealing with a customer, a retail customer. The worst customer is someone that's unhappy and goes away quietly and never says a word, never does anything. They just go away. I'd rather have someone that's not happy with the product, whatever I've sold them, but and is vocal about it and gives me a chance to understand something that I perhaps didn't know, and now I can go resolve it. And in a lot of cases, if you know there's a problem with your product, with your service, whatever it is, and you fix it for that person, you end up creating a raving fan out of someone who really was disgusted for a.
Mm-hmm.
It's the quiet ones that go away that are the most damaging, I think, to brands and businesses.
Well, yeah, and again, I think you become indifferent when all you're sharing is here's my flyers of this product, that product, and the other thing, or uh,
Yep.
here's my mortgage talking head videos where I'm saying the same thing as every other loan officer at the same time. So you're right.
Yeah.
The indifference, I think you're totally right, is actually worse than, hey, I created a piece of content that might spur some personal opinions one way or the other.
Right.
At least with the personal opinion one, you're getting engagement, right? You're
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
some
yeah.
form of traction, or at least conversation. Now, I do want to pivot our conversation just a hair because, part of our job every day, right, is to go out and find somebody that we can build a relationship with. And I have a homework assignment in my program when I'm working with my coaching clients, and I say to them, your job every single day for 365 days of the year is to send a message to someone that you do not know with the intention of creating a relationship that you can take offline, right? And the best and easiest way to do that is through leverage by creating a relationship with someone, me to you,
Yep.
through somebody that we already had a relationship with, or that I already had a relationship with that you probably also did too. So you and I had this mutual other person, but you and I didn't know each other. And so
Yeah.
that's leverage. And in my opinion, again, you earn the right to create leverage for yourself by having really, really killer relationships in the first place. So, talk to me though, like, what does it look like for you on LinkedIn if that's your primary prospecting platform? What does it look like for you to go prospect a new opportunity?
Yeah. So, this is where it gets a little um, squishy because my primary audience, desired audience, is a loan officer.
Mhm.
Now, loan officers are on the platform, they're on LinkedIn, but a lot of them are just on the platform. They're not active on the platform. And so, what I'm fighting a little bit of an uphill battle because that's where I've built my audience, my followers, my connections. And so what I'm trying to do is I am trying to take some of my strategy over to where I believe loan officers are, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or what have you. It's
Both.
just a slower process for me. And frankly, I'm just not as I'm on those platforms, but not active on those platforms. So sticking to LinkedIn in particular, I've done a couple things that I think have helped leveraging the tools of LinkedIn. So there's two tools in particular that I use every week. One is I have a newsletter that
Mhm.
I publish externally through our CRM, and we've got 10,000 subscribers to that newsletter in our CRM. And then I repurpose that same content and I created a newsletter on LinkedIn, and I've got about the same 10,000, and there's probably a lot of crossover. But it's like once a week, that's guaranteed content that I've taken from that we've created for our external newsletter. I repurpose it on LinkedIn. And if you think about the platform LinkedIn, if it has tools like a newsletter, it's probably smart to use it because they're probably going to the platform itself is probably going to promote the fact that you're using a tool on the platform. So that newsletter, like every week that I do on LinkedIn, has like a 40% open rate off of the article that goes out.
That's really good.
And so then what I do off of any engagement that I get on that weekly newsletter, whether it's just a thumbs up or better yet a comment, I'll address. If it's a comment, I'm always going to comment back. And my goal in all of my commenting, whether it's on somebody else's content or responding to a comment on my own, my ultimate goal in each of those threads is to pull the conversation off of the public platform into the personal side of it, the DM side, the personal message side.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm, again, work in progress. I'm very much a work in progress here, but I'm getting better at having success pulling those conversations over. And I feel like in my mind, the minute that conversation goes to private message, I feel like it's an invitation to talk more about our product, our service, how we can help, right?
Yeah.
Until they tell me to, pound sand and go away, which they never do. So newsletter is a powerful tool for me. And we've really built our content. It follows all the themes of what I talk about, which is the power and value of up funnel engagement, reaching consumers earlier, blah, 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 blah. So very consistent on that content. The
Mm-hmm.
second tool that I use every week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, is the live event tool on LinkedIn.
I
Right.
noticed that.
So
I actually noticed that about you, and you get like crazy engagement on it.
it is. I don't know if it's like I couldn't say that I'm better or worse than anybody else, but I would say that the engagement off of those lives feels more, the conversations that come off of that engagement is more real than just a static, written post and comments off of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I do a weekly Friday show, if you will. So that's a recurring Friday thing. And then most recently I've like this recording, Michelle, that we're going to do here with your permission, which now you're going to have to say yes, because I'm putting you on
Right,
the
because
spot.
we're recording. I have to say yes now.
With your permission, I would love to take this recorded conversation,
Yeah.
and a couple weeks down the road, set it up as a live on my Saturday morning series that I do.
Hmm.
And I'm getting like 300, 400 people to watch those Saturday morning lives, which are really a recorded conversation I had a week or 2 weeks or even 3 weeks ago. So it's like just leveraging the tools of the platform in a way that creates diversity of content. So lives, recorded, events that I post, certainly written, and some other video that I'll do and just post it up there. So I try to vary the medium, if you will, and not get stuck, just in a rut, so that people get bored with what I'm doing, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely, which is easy to do.
Yeah.
Sure. But so I heard two things. One, you're utilizing different features to the LinkedIn platform than pretty much anyone I've seen, right? I don't see hardly anyone going live on LinkedIn. I just don't, right?
Right.
Even some of our close counterparts in the space are not really doing that. I see lots of people going live on Facebook. That's always been a big thing. The Instagram lives has been a thing for some people. It's not nearly as popular as Facebook Live, but people are still doing it. But LinkedIn is just not a space I've really seen a lot of people tap into. The newsletter one, I got to tell you, from a consumer perspective, I always was very annoyed by it in the beginning, right? Like, because as soon as you become a friend of somebody, or you're a connection on LinkedIn, they're like instantly you're getting hit with, hey, here's my newsletter. So a lot of the times I leave them in my inbox to approve much later on, if it makes sense to do that with this relationship that I'm building. Because frankly, I get bombarded with join this newsletter, and I don't want my feed to be nothing but newsletters. I just don't.
Right. Yeah. Totally makes sense.
That's just my own thing. But I will tell you, like, I've seen a lot of people utilize the newsletter, but I don't think a lot of people have done it well. You are an exception to the rule for sure. One thing I will say though is my hope for you, and this might be just like a live coaching moment on the spot.
I'll take it.
Is how do you take all of those eyeballs that you're talking about, right, and actually create conversation in your DMs without it being about FinLocker all the time. And instead, like this morning, for example, I sent a message to a guy who runs a big wholesale company. And well, guess what? The beautiful thing about wholesale lenders is they have AEs that need training and that want value adds to give to their loan officers. Well, I like to think I have a pretty darn big value add, right? But it took me several conversations with this individual before I was very comfortable saying, hey, by the way, I've actually been thinking about this, because I have, right? But question for you is, are you providing training for your AEs in this format and in this type of structure that I'm telling you I can teach you? And by the way, by this point in the conversation, for context, for those listening, and even for you, Brian, is this guy now knows that I'm going to be speaking at 4 or 5 different events this year, one of which is Fuse coming up in October, right? So the credibility that I've built with an individual based off of, hey, you're going to be doing all of these things, I might be a little bit more willing to say yes to you. But it wasn't my first message.
All right.
So I think there's some knack there. But I will tell you, I think for you, if you can structure it, and this is, again, my superpower, right? Literally what I get paid to do is teach people how to do this, but structure your outbound engagement, right? Every single day of the week. What is a category? If you're going direct to LO, well, guess what? You better spend more time on Instagram, because that's where individual LOs are spending most of their time. Now, LinkedIn, which if any of you guys listening to this heard my episode with James Duncan, we were talking about the difference between prospecting on LinkedIn versus Instagram. Fascinating from James's perspective. But what I really took away from the conversation is LinkedIn is your SVPs, your director of sales, your director of
Yeah.
marketing, the people that can make influence for you to go one to many. So
Yes.
one to many for us is huge. Now, if you're listening to this and you're a loan officer and you're like, well, I'm not trying to go one to many, I'm trying to go one to one. What do? You go to Instagram, you create content in the pillars that we've talked about, you story tell your way through it. And guess what? You send a message to someone you do not know every single day in a structured, intentional way. And so sorry to coach you there for a minute.
No, I
I
love that.
didn't mean to do that, but my brain said, do it.
Yeah.
But I think you have the platform, everybody, that you're around or the ecosystem that you're on or created for yourself on LinkedIn, you have to really think about it. Half of these people are probably waiting for you to message them, but they don't want to be the one to message you first.
So it's so interesting that you say that. So one of the things that a couple of things that I do that are like super intentional, maybe borderline OCD. Every single morning, usually between 5:30 a.m. and 6 a.m., I go into LinkedIn, go into my connections or whatever they call it, and guess what? It tells me every single day whose birthday it is today.
Mm-hmm.
How cool is that? And
Weird.
so, yeah, weird, huh? I created a video, a happy birthday video. It's like 8 seconds long. It's just stored in my phone. So literally, when I'm laying in bed, before I even get out of bed, I've said happy birthday to 20 to 30 people, depending on how many have birthdays, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't track this probably the way I should, but anecdotally, I get 80% responses from those birthday videos. Usually it's thumbs up, right? A lot of times it's, oh my God, I can't believe you took the time to send me a happy birthday video. Or even this morning, I got one. I was just thinking about you over the weekend. So glad that you wished me happy birthday. I need to get an updated demo of FinLocker. So to your point, that person may or may not have reached out to me, except that they first thing they saw this morning was the very I probably greeted them happy birthday before their spouse or their parents did. So that's one thing I do every single day. The other thing I do multiple times a day, usually twice a day, is I look at who's viewed my profile. And I have another video. This one's about 20 seconds long that thanks them for taking the time to visit my profile. I talk about, I take great pride in the content I put on my page and that I put out. If you ever need anything, but whatever, blah, 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 blah. Simple conversation starter video. Those get about 50% reactions and comments, but I've had more conversations come from just those two kind of institutionalized greetings, if you will, that I
Yeah, I was
created.
gonna say they're very what do you want to say? Traditional
Yeah.
ways of doing that's might not be the right way of saying it, but my encouragement to you is 50% of a response would be more like 75 or 80 if you go to their page first,
Oh, I know.
just what they're doing, and actually see something that they posted about personally. And I have this saying in like webinars or presentations when I do it, and please use this truly, is would you rather send 100 DMs or private messages, or would you rather make 100 cold calls, cold
Mm.
calls? Which would you rather do? Right now, here's the context. If you think about this, you have two lists. Both lists have the exact same names: first name, last name, phone number. Okay. So both lists have first name, last name, phone number. The second list, however, has 3 bullet points about where that person has recently been, what family trip they've recently been on, something that they've posted about personally. I have a very good friend and client who mom passed away yesterday, right? And she's on my calendar, or was supposed to be on my calendar for this Thursday, and I saw her reschedule her call for next week, Thursday. I know exactly why,
Yep.
but she hasn't started paying for coaching yet. She's kind of in that interim. She bought the course a little while ago. Now this conversation is, hey, I think I need to add coaching. So the best thing that I could do, which I did, right, was I sent her a video message and I said, hey, I know what's going on. I just want you to know I'm thinking about you. I'm praying for you. And if there's anything that I can do, a prayer request you have, anything, I am here to support you. Please do not worry about your call this week. I'll see you next week. And I really look forward to it.
Love
But
that.
the step, I would rather send 10 of those a day
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
versus 50 of the cold bump ones. So to your example where like if someone starts consuming your page or someone starts following you, maybe instead of I'm sending, I mean, how many do you send on average? Like 20, 30
Yeah, something like that.
a day or a
Yeah,
week or what? A day?
a day. Yeah.
Okay, so make it 10, make it 15, but go the extra mile and your conversion rate will be way more than 50% guaranteed as far as reply. End every message in the form of a question. Don't end it in a statement.
Oh yeah.
Game changer. And then I always have this thought in my mind, and my coach used to always tell me this, and I used to hate it when he would say it, but now I'm like, okay, I get it. But live in the land of curiosity, meaning if somebody responds back and doesn't have a question and it's just like a statement, then that's how they replied to you, even though you sent them this big, long, beautiful message. Doesn't mean they don't want to talk to you. It just means that they're not quite ready to open up. So the best thing you can do is ask them another question, right? Keep the conversation going and ask them another question. So that's what living in the land of curiosity means. But not to make it another coaching moment, but your
Oh, I
50%
love that.
opening rate would for sure be more than that. And don't make it a numbers game. I think that's the other piece I want to make note
Yeah.
of, because it's not a matter of how many you send, it's a matter of how many open it and how many reply. And I would take a gander to say, my reply rate's probably 90% or higher.
Oh yeah. No, I think what I just heard was impact over quantity for sure.
Mm.
And I just created a solution while you were coaching me. So thank you.
Tell us,
Because
what is it? Say it out loud.
if I look at who's viewed my profile, if I'm looking at it on desktop, I can actually see a preview of like who they are, not just who they are as a person, but I can tell at a glance if this is like a target or not. And so in my mind, I'll probably have two steps. Step one is if you're not in my quote unquote target zone, you're going to get my prepackaged video. But if you're in my ICP, then I'm gonna step back. I'm gonna do a little. I'm gonna look at your profile, and I'm gonna give you a personal message, maybe even a personal video back on that. I love that.
It's so impactful, so impactful. And I have like several really, warm leads in my life right now. And when I go to send them their follow-up text message or their follow-up email, it's not a regular text
Yeah,
video, even though I like, my hair's done while we're on video right now. But most of the time, all of you guys probably listening to this know my hair's on top of my head. I either just worked out, I'm chasing my 3.5-year-old around, or I'm about to go work out. So,
right.
for me, I try to not let that limit me. So I've even like the CEO of AIM, Jonathan Haddad, the other day, he called me, or he FaceTimed me, and I was like, crap, really? On this day, like I just got home from working out. I legit look like a tomato, but you know what? Jonathan calls, and when Jonathan calls, you answer. And so I'm trying to normalize that a lot for all of us on the ladies' side, right? But yeah, I think just impact for you is so huge. And I would also tell you on Instagram, you have the ability of going one-to-one with bazillions of loan officers. I mean, how many licensed loan officers are there in 2025? 90 something,
Yeah,
right? So not to make this a Brian go sell to my loan officers who are listening to this, but the reality is those of you guys who are listening and you are a loan officer, you have the ability to make the same impact to the real estate agent that you're trying to create a connection with, to the vendor partner that you're trying to create a connection with, to the builder account you're trying to land. I talked to a commercial real estate agent yesterday who's trying to really focus her business more on the commercial side. She still does residential stuff here and there, but she really wants to build her commercial business. And I said, okay, well, then you have the ability now to go to realtors on Instagram that are not doing commercial and be the go-to resource if
mm,
the client needs that, right? How
yeah,
many business owners are buying houses that need in-person space?
right. It's amazing. Yeah, I have to be more intentional about these other platforms, knowing that that's where our you know ICP, that's where our target client is, and I guess part of me was hoping they'd make their way to LinkedIn at scale, and it's not happening.
At least not as fast as we want it to.
It never does, right? Never
No,
does.
no. Well, Brian, I just love how your brain thinks. I love the product. I don't know it as well as I want to know it yet, but that's what's exciting about all of this, is the ability to say that I am doing that and that I am
Right.
putting that effort and time into, not just by being more present with you, but also just going down the wormhole on my own. And I think more people should.
Love it.
I think there's some power in understanding how can we beat the competition and what is the differentiator. And it's not just about having better content, because yes, that's an aspect or a part of that flywheel, right? But the reality is you also have the time aspect of
Yeah.
speed. Um,
Yeah.
and you want to win when they're ready, but you also want to win well before they even know they're ready.
Yeah. I
Um,
think this is such a interesting time for the mortgage industry and for loan officers in particular. You know, today while we're recording, we had news that, Rocket made an announcement that they're acquiring Mr. Cooper, right? So overnight, now this thing's got to get closed and all that, but Rocket now is going to have over 10 million customers, clients, consumers, whatever you want to call it, right?
Gosh, yeah.
And so it's halfway through the day today, and most of my messages and feedback on this is a little bit of, oh shit, what's going on? And I turn it around and say this is yet another opportunity for you as a local loan officer to stand out, and but you got to be willing to put yourself out there. Be visible, not just physically visible, but digitally visible, right? So it means you have to be on all the platforms. And then C, the purchase business is still won at a very hyper local level. And so Rocket hasn't solved that piece of it. And so that's where the local loan officer still can win and win at scale in their community.
Mm.
And so I look at these type of events, the Rocket Redfin, now Rocket Mr. Cooper, as the playbook that you as an individual loan officer can now put in play in your community, in your market. You don't have to think, don't be intimidated by the biggest brands because they're doing things at a macro national level. You just have to own your zip code, your community, your digital and physical footprint. And I think it's a great time to be a loan officer if you have that mindset.
I think it's also like just quiet the chaos, quiet the noise, quiet
Yep.
all the stuff around us, right? And a loan officer's job every single day is to get a pre-approval out so that that person can go shopping. That person goes shopping, goes under contract. That means that the loan officer needs to have a good relationship with their real estate agents, right? So that they get the call when it's time.
Yep.
You also have to have a solution for other real estate agents who are not getting what they need, and you got to market both those things, right?
Got it.
You simplify it, and all of a sudden, right? Oh my gosh, you have a loan in the pipe. Now, does every loan officer need to be doing 5, 10, 15, 20 loans a month? No, right? Some of them, I mean, I have plenty of clients, and I'm sure you have plenty of people that are using FinLocker that are doing 1 or 2 loans a
Yeah.
month. You don't need to be doing 10 loans a month to be successful at being a
That's
mortgage
right.
professional or to be content in whatever your life is.
That's right.
So again, I think if I can leave it with this one thought for you on your marketing side for FinLocker, for me on my day to day, for those of you listening thinking, how do I prospect better? How do I do a better job at creating momentum and revenue for my company? At the end of the day, you just have to simplify the chaos. That's it. Because all I can control, all you can control is my output every single day. And if my output is very systematized and very strategic, like I just know I won't fail. I just know
Right.
I won't. So
Love
simplify
it.
things.
That's great. Michelle, thanks so much for having me on.
Oh my
This is
gosh. Well,
great.
thanks for having me, Brian. I love this, and offline I know we'll continue to keep talking more and more about this, but I would love for you to tell anybody where are you going to be next, because I know you travel quite a bit to talk about FinLocker and to be at different places. So where are you going to be next? Where in the world is Brian View? And then secondly, how can we get connected with you aside from, the traditional just socials? Is there anywhere else you want us to or want someone to go?
Yeah, so today's Monday, the 31st of March. I don't know when you're publishing this, but in 2 days, I will be in just outside of Fort Lauderdale speaking to a group of loan officers at an LO summit put on by the Mortgage Bankers of Association of Florida. So I'm looking forward to that. Um, as far as where to find me, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn in case you didn't notice, guys. Come on.
In case you didn't hear it 14 times, guys, LinkedIn.
that's the place to get me because I will react and respond right away. But you can also visit finlocker.com and check us out there.
Yep, love it. And we'll put it all in the show notes so people can get to you pretty easily. But Brian, thank you for your time. Thank you for just your willingness, your knowledge, most importantly. You just you really you can tell you want to be a steward of the craft and learn and figure it all out. And then also thanks for letting me coach you a little bit on accident.
Oh, I'll take it anytime. Thanks, Michelle.
Awesome. You're so welcome, guys. We'll see you in the next episode of the Coffee and Questions podcast.